This video shows how to use item number 177, solder shrink tubes, to connect, in this particular case, a hard to solder string of 1-inch spacing seed pixels with our 823 pigtail. Now, this is a bulk string of product here, and you, of course, do need to solder on a cable. All right, so let's start off with prepping our cable. Now, before we even prep our cable, we kind of want to just check it. You're going to see markings. This is negative here with this dashed line. There's also print on here that says positive, negative, and data. Now, we know where the data is coming from in this cable because it starts here and goes this way. But on these pixels, check for printing on here. You may need to flip the cable over. You'll see printing. Use your phone's magnification function and you can actually see this print. Look for an arrow. The arrow is pointing away from the pigtail. So if the arrow is going this way, that means the data is coming in and going towards the end of the string. All right, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use some nippers, and these nippers commonly available, also called dikes. And I'm just going to strip, in this particular case, 1/4 inch from all of these wires. I'm just going to slightly push down and then strip them all at one time. Now, if it's easier for you, you can do one at a time. Then I'm just going to give these a little bit of a turn. That just keeps all of the individual strands together and makes it easier. I'm going to just pull a little bit farther apart so we have more room to work. Now, let's prep our pixels. Now, again, there's not much spacing here, so that can make it an extremely hard configuration to work with. And this is 1 inch. So I'm going to make sure I cut as far back to this other seed pixel as possible. And now I'm going to take and strip off again about 1/4 inch. There we go. And I'm going to keep a little bit more there. Now we have our wires, and I'm going to separate them just by pulling them apart. Now, you may find this easier to do starting off. Just start off by pulling across your wires. Again, just going to bundle the wires together by turning them. And now we've got all of our wires. Again, make sure that you're identifying which wire is the one you're going to be working with. We're going to be working with this one, which I've identified as the negative, along with this one, which I've identified as the negative. Now, if you have a helping hands device, that can be very helpful to hold this while you're doing that. Now, the first thing you're going to notice is if you try to push this 1-inch spacing seed pixel compared to normal pixels like this, where you're going to have plenty of room to work with, you may not be able to get the wire in there before it hits the seed pixel. Totally normal. So just come back in here and nip off that extra portion right here. So you'll have one side with the shrink ring and then one without. All right, now the goal here is just to put the wires with the bare section here into the middle of the solder shrink tube solder ring. So we'll just slide that into the hole. And then we'll come over here, we'll get our cable, again, making sure that we've checked everything, that we have the right distances and the right cable. And now we have that in there. Now, I'm going to use a propane or butane torch, and this is just like a cigar lighter or a barbecue lighter. They're available everywhere. You can also use a Bic lighter, and even if you want, if you have a heater, like a heat gun, you can use that. Sometimes that's a little big. These are nice and compact, so we do like these best. Again, I'm going to make sure that my cables are right in there, and everything looks centered. It may be a little hard to see. I'm just going to go back and forth. You'll see the solder shrink and start to ooze out. Just make sure those all land there. Now, this is molten metal. So we do need to allow it to cool down. You also may see some extrusion of the solder because this is a very small gauge cable, and it may come out the end and you can just pull that off or nip it off. Allow it enough time to cool down so that we have a good connection here, and then give it a pull. In this particular case, you can see that I have made a good mechanical connection. I'm just going to trim off this little nub right here. There we go. And we simply just repeat the same process 2 more times, and then we'll complete this. A little trick, if you are using seed pixels, what you can do is after you make your initial connection, if let's say you have to do 160 pixels, you can set up your controller to output data to all 160 pixels and then just find the end of the string with the last pixel that's showing. That'll show you where you need to trim your cable or cut it off. Of course, obviously, you need to not do that while the power is connected. So this is how to use solder shrink tubes.